Do you know how to set up your photography for post-processing success? Nearly everyone has become a photographer thanks to the iPhone. Sure, you can take a pretty decent picture on a smartphone and use any photo editing app available on the market, but having a great photograph entails more than that. I'm Sissy, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of post-processing photography, from discussing the exposure triangle to the importance of image formatting. So grab your cameras and come along. Let's go. I'm sure you've heard of the saying, they have an eye for photography. And while having an innate knack for photography is helpful, so is having the right tools, as well as the knowledge of how to use said tools. One of those tools is post-processing. Post-processing is the use of any technique or technology to enhance the original image you've captured. Back in the day, photographers used to airbrush images to soften or remove something from the original capture. Once digital photography hit the market in the 90s, editing software like Photoshop was developed. With Photoshop, photographers could digitally alter their original images. Post-processing photography software can help enhance your photos, but it doesn't turn any picture into a work of art. The fundamentals of good photography are still very much a key part of having a great photograph. Each photograph you've seen is the result of three important components: aperture, speed, and ISO. How you adjust these three variables will significantly affect the quality of photos you take. They make the difference between a blurry shot of a soccer game and a clear image of a ball passing inches from the outstretched fingertips of the goalie. So let's take a closer look at these three important components. The aperture refers to how far open or closed the camera lens is when you snap the photo. By adjusting your aperture, you'll allow more or less light to pass through the lens. The measurement in which the opening is measured is called f-stops. A higher f-stop means the aperture is small. A lower f-stop means the aperture is wider or more open. For bright images like a rising or setting sun, you'll want to have a smaller aperture opening, meaning a higher f-stop. If you're shooting the desert sky at night, you'll want a lower f-stop, so more light can pass through the open aperture. If you're capturing an image of a particular person on a crowded city sidewalk, you'll want to use a low f-stop. This creates a shallow depth of field focused sharply on the person. The rest of the crowd will be blurrier. If you're shooting a photo of sailboats on a large body of water, you'll want to use a high f-stop to account for the deep depth of field. That way, all the sailboats will be in sharp focus. The second component of the exposure triangle is shutter speed. The shutter speed refers to how long the shutter is open, allowing light to reach image sensors of your camera. Think of it this way. The longer the shutter is open, the more light reaches the imaging sensor, resulting in a brighter picture. The shorter the amount of time the shutter is open, the less light can get in, resulting in a darker picture. If you want to produce clearer photos of moving subjects or still subjects in low light, finding the right shutter speed is going to be your best tool. If you've seen an image of a bat hitting a pitch and both the ball and bat are crystal clear, it's because the shutter speed was super fast. Fast shutter speed to capture fast objects. On the other hand, if you've seen a photograph of bats in a dark cave, the shutter speed was set very low. The third side of the exposure triangle is ISO. The ISO is the sensitivity of the camera's light sensor. It uses software within your digital camera to adjust the exposure, making it more sensitive to light. A high ISO produces a brighter picture, whereas a lower ISO produces a noisier photo. This is when a photo ends up looking grainy. If you've ever taken a photo at night and it's ended up super grainy, it's because the ISO was set incorrectly. Going forward, you'll want to adjust the ISO to a higher setting to compensate for the low amount of natural light. Knowing how to set your exposure triangle well is crucial to taking good photos. On top of that, you'll want to set your format appropriately as well. Digital cameras record images in JPEG format, which ends up compressing a huge amount of data, unavoidably losing some of it. If you're intending to enhance your photos in post-processing, then you'll want to shoot RAW files. This means your camera records all of the image data without compressing any of it. The better your initial image, the more you can do with post-processing. With JPEG, your camera will do a pretty good job compressing the image. However, starting with a raw image makes it easier to adjust the exposure to allow for a clearer final image. Like with many things in life, it's important to build a solid foundation. And with digital photography, a solid foundation is made up of a well-executed exposure triangle. With these tips, you'll be set up for picture-perfect images. Let's review. Start by adjusting your camera settings appropriately. This involves the exposure triangle, which is made up of the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. In combination, these three settings will help you master the perfect shot, no matter where or what your subject is. Don't forget to play around with JPEG and RAW image formats. Depending on post-process preferences, RAW files may give you more room to play. Thanks for tuning in to Jotform. I'm Sissy, and I'll see you next time.